What does a big green owl weeping while listening to Taylor Swift have to do with customer acquisition and earned media coverage? Stick around for this episode of For Immediate Release. We'll tell you all about it. Another fine podcast from the FIR Podcast Network.
This is For Immediate Release, the podcast for communicators.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode number 224 of For Immediate Release. I'm Shel Holtz.
And I'm Neville Hobson. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how Duolingo is using its unhinged content with Duo the Owl to make people laugh on TikTok.
This was a story I read in Digiday, and I was interested in this for a couple of reasons. First of all, I'm very familiar with Duolingo. It is an app that you can get to help you learn languages. It takes a somewhat different approach, and I was introduced to it when somebody where I work said, let's start a little group of people who are all using Duolingo at the same time to learn Spanish. And it didn't go anywhere, but I got to know the app at that point. And of course, I have a tremendous interest in TikTok as I look to bring the company where I work into TikTok. You know, Neville, that I created a For Immediate Release account on TikTok and put our first video up there using a service called Wave. That's WAAVE. That is specifically designed to let you take snippets of your podcast and an image and apply a waveform and other text and put it on TikTok in order to get some attention, maybe drive some listens for your show. So this story resonated with me. What Duolingo has been doing on TikTok through one person who's responsible for the account over there is producing what they're calling unhinged content. Their logo is this big green owl. And so they have a big green owl costume that she puts on and does these videos. For example, there's one, I'll read this here. The owl's name, by the way, is Duo. And she can be found twerking on an office desktop in what's captioned as a sneak peek at premium content you can only get on Duolingo Plus. In another, Duo appears to be crying and sliding down the wall to Taylor Swift's Enchanted with the lyrics, "Please don't be in love with someone else." And they're racking up some massive views, 4.6 million likes on this. They have a couple million followers for a language app. It's not the dominant language app. There are bigger apps out there for learning a language. Babbel is the one I think that gets most of the attention. But you have to think that with this kind of visibility, the virality of these particular TikTok videos, even though they don't have a whole lot to do with learning a language, people are checking out the app.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. I'm not familiar with Duolingo, so this is an education for me. How you've described it makes a lot of sense to me in terms of the Digiday piece. And I think it is interesting what they have been doing. That example you mentioned of the 4.6 million likes and some of the activities they've been doing isn't especially unique, right? I mean, a lot of activity would take place in other places online to do a similar kind of thing. What seems to be different, the Digiday piece talks about how the viral content that Duolingo was involved with has really taken off. People had discovered a language learning service via TikTok, they say, people who were using it. Something they learned about via How Did You Hear About Us survey. So these are not unusual things. So what drove it all? That was the thing that intrigued me. And we have the answer. In fact, Digiday talks about it, didn't they? They talked about humanizing the brand, right?
Exactly. And I think this is a lesson for a lot of brands that you need to step out of that comfort zone and that very corporate approach that you take to doing this sort of thing, and do what works on any given channel. And on TikTok, it is personalization. It is funny. It is big and maybe loud, if you will. And this, it's attracted more than just the audience of potential users of the app. It's caught the attention, according to the Digiday article, of NBC News, Insider, Rolling Stone, the magazine, have all started writing and reporting on this, and they wouldn't have through the typical press releases or other kind of media outreach. This is a great example of content marketing that leads to earned media coverage in addition to just attention from your prospective customers.
Yeah, exactly. I think I particularly like the way Digiday talked about. It kind of got to the nexus, as it were, their ability to lean into unhinged content. Lovely phrase, that, isn't it? Leveraging viral trends, interacting with other TikTokers in the comment section, and poking fun at themselves by recreating memes that have been created about the brand. It's meant to entertain. So I look at some things that I observe, indeed some work I've done not long ago, that missed this whole point. That is such a shame that happened in those examples that I've just touched on. What Duolingo has done is really captured that and is able to take advantage of it in the right way. So entertaining rather than present a marketing story and a sales opportunity, because that likely would follow if you connect the people through entertaining them, provide them with something that doesn't seem to have an axe to grind with it or an angle to leverage behind it, even though it does, but it's done in the right way. And I think as Digiday says, the key is it's less about selling Duolingo to TikTok audiences, but entertaining them. And it goes on later to talk about what the kind of summarizing everything, the main selling point of this is the humanization of it. And this would do that, right?
Yeah, one of the bits of this article that I liked is quoting an executive with a creative agency. Brendan Gann is his name. And what he said was the brand was aware. I mean, their logo has been this owl, but they were aware of the memes that have been out there with owls for years. And he said, I don't think most brands have the bravery to do that and embrace these things, which on the surface can be perceived as negative. Duolingo really flipped it on its head. He said what they got right was letting the audience lead them to the right answer. And that comes from social listening, a willingness to fail, and a strong ability to pivot. To put that in TikTok terms, he said the brands that get it, and the brands that don't.
Yeah, simple as that, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think as you look at who's doing this well, it's certainly catching the attention of, say, Hollywood. I saw this article on CNBC that says Hollywood agencies are looking for TikTok talent to harness their large and loyal followings. But I suspect some of these could become filmmakers in their own right. But going after people who are producing this kind of content in order to tap into their audiences, I mean, what kind of partnerships might that lead to Duolingo?
Yeah, I think it's interesting too the way in which we see in this piece from Digiday exploring what other brands have been doing in a similar area, i.e. humanizing themselves in the eyes of the people they're trying to connect with, and some observations made by people working for those other brands on is this sustainable, what Duolingo is trying to do? Well, time will tell, of course, but they're riding a wave right now. I was intrigued by one comment later in the piece that talked about the current plans to test and learn. That makes good sense to me, tightening their strategy, exploring different storylines and social media platforms. But with the interesting question at the end, it's unclear where the green owl fits into this. So that I could see probably a milestone moment for them when if they evolve this enough that the green owl suddenly is not the way they need to be presenting this, that gives them a significant challenge for what is their brand in that case. But, that may or may not be the case. That's a speculative comment, but it makes you wonder, or makes you think, I think. It makes me think that nothing's permanent. You have to confront change when it's lucky, if you're lucky enough that it's a good time to do that. So your work is doing well, but the change that you next need to make to maintain that and indeed do better might be a shift in what your brand actually is. And that's not a light step to take. So that's what I read into this, is what it might be suggesting. They're successful. They're doing very well. They're following literally the 101 playbook with, testing and learning, tightening the strategy, exploring different storylines. The cost of that outcome could well be the death of the logo.
It seems to me that if they needed to drop the owl, the fact that they were able to make this shift to embracing the owl and taking it new directions sets them up well. I'm sure they could do a TikTok video, for example, where the owl is flying away to some appropriate music that leads into whatever their new identity is. I bet they could do that really well.
Yeah, well, it's a great story, I have to say, and I think it's something that we can get some great insights from, the experience of it all, as Digiday describes in their well-written article. It's a good one.
Yep, I thought so too. And that will be a 30 for this episode of For Immediate Release.